What's your most shameful, not safe for work moment? When I was 12, my younger sister walked in on me playing Fondle the Dongle. I told her I couldn't pee and was trying to force/pump it out. She then told my mom out of worry and told her that I needed to see a doctor to help me pee. When my mom confronted me about what my sister was saying, I then had to explain it to her. Story 2. In middle school, my friend got her boobs and she wanted me to touch them. We probably spent 30 minutes every day before school groping each other in the back of the library until the librarian caught us and we were suspended. I wish I could say I enjoyed it, but going to first period raging hard was not ideal every day. Story 3. My high school girlfriend and I were doing it in the sideways laying down position when my mom walked in to show me a new Christmas decoration she had gotten. To her, it looked like we were just cuddling, but she sat on the bed inches away from me actively inside of my girlfriend and proceeded to talk for like 10 minutes. Story 4. Back in high school, I was eating my girlfriend out in my room, and my mom had a habit of only knocking like 1 or 2 times really quickly and then just letting herself in. So my mom walks in and she's like, "Oop, sorry," and walks right back out. The next time I saw my mom alone, she said, "I don't want to walk in on my son going down on his girlfriend." So I said, "Don't walk in then." After that, she'd always knock and then just crack the door so she could say what she needed to say. She never fully walked into the room again after that. That's one way to get your parents to stop barging into your room. Or for some parents, to never be able to have your girlfriend over ever again, or never get to hang out with them. Story 5. When I was 5 or 6 years old, my mom was having a dinner party with some new friends. I'd been put to bed for the night, and I randomly, unaroused, got a boner. I learned that I could move it up and down if I flexed it. I thought this was so cool, and decided that I needed to share it with somebody. I ran out to the dining room totally naked, and proceeded to show an entire dinner party my new dick trick. Everyone was mortified, and I was confused why no one thought it was cool. Story 6. My dad caught me editing the game files of The Sims to replace the female underwear textures with underwear that just makes them look nude. I looked up reference material and edited them in Photoshop. That was a lot of effort to put into something so depraved. Story 7. I was once extremely drunk and staying in a very expensive hotel in Hollywood. I went to bed and woke up in the middle of the night and had to pee. I walked through what I thought was the bathroom door and closed it behind me. I then realized that it wasn't the bathroom door, but rather the room door. I was locked out of my room in a fancy hotel, drunk as hell, wearing only my underwear. I went to the elevator lobby where there was a phone and called the front desk and explained my situation. They said they would send someone up. I realized I couldn't wait and continued searching for a place to pee and found a janitor closet with a rolling mop bucket in it. I took a giant pee in the mop bucket and then walked back to my room door, where a bellhop who really didn't want to look me in the eyes let me back into my room. When you've got to go, you gotta go. I just wonder if the bellhop knew you peed in the janitor's closet. If he saw you come out of there, he could have just thought you were hiding until someone came to let you in. That way you weren't just sitting in your underwear outside of the room for everybody to see. Story 8. When I was like 12, maybe, we got a new family computer with a scanner. I stayed up late playing with it in the den. After scanning everything I could find, I scanned my hands, face, feet, and I even scanned my butt. It was so slow, though. The scans would be all messed up and jittery from me moving. So I flipped a small trash can, put the scanner on top, and knelt down in front of it. I worked up a decent boner and closed it in the scanner. Mid-scan, the door to the den slowly opens. It's my sleepy dad in his underwear looking very confused at me doggy-styling the new family scanner. "What are you doing?" he said. So I said, "I'm scanning my penis." He didn't react at all. He just backed out and closed the door. It was 5 seconds of my life, but it still haunts me. Story 9. In the 90s, we bought a pub and moved into it. It had a big screen downstairs and we lived above. But Sky Sports was so expensive for the business account, we basically hooked the giant screen to our box upstairs, so whenever the sport was on, it would show on the screen downstairs. We couldn't watch TV upstairs except what was being shown on the big screen when this was happening. One Sunday evening around 10 p.m. after the sports, I was freely browsing through channels because the giant screen had been put away already. My 14-year-old self came across some softcore porn. Curious, I started watching it. Suddenly, there was a big buzz from the phone that connected to the downstairs. I answered it, and it was my mom with a lot of laughing in the background. She asked me what I was watching. I was just flicking through channels, I said. She said, "Well, you've stayed on that one for a while, haven't you?" I had forgotten about the small TV in the bar area. It was still on and was showing the entire pub what my horny 14-year-old self was watching. I was mortified. Luckily, my mom never brought it up again, and neither did any of the customers, thankfully. Story 10. In grade 9, we didn't have internet at home, which wasn't unusual at the time. I saw this lady on Maury Povich that had really large breasts, and she advertised her webpage. This was something I just had to see. The internet was still enough of a novelty that any website was worth checking out, but the real deal was only available by stealing dirty magazines or by paying for it. So the next day in design class, I took the computer at the far end of the room, which was flanked by the darkened windows of an adjacent classroom. You can guess where this is going. I turned the screen away from my classmates and teacher and started looking at the glorious, bountiful bosoms of this Maury Povich guest. Moments later, I notice movement in my peripheral vision, and when I turn my head, I see that the classroom I thought was empty was in fact full. It was full of seniors laughing and pointing at me. Their teacher rushes into the room screaming, "You can't do that," and grabs me by the wrist and physically pulls me to the principal's office. The principal was the best. He just looked at me and asked, "No internet at home?" And when I said no, he said, "Well, I think you've been through enough. Don't do it again," with a chuckle, and let me go without further punishment. Needless to say, I was pretty much famous in my high school, and in the worst way possible. People would literally point and laugh at me in the halls. Story 11. When I was with my ex, we did some long distance for a while. While I am not about sending nudes, after not seeing each other for a long time, you kinda get an urge to see the other person naked, so nudes were exchanged. She was mostly interested in close-ups of me erect, so I sent those. Upon returning home, I discovered that she had set a picture of me erect as my profile picture in her phone, meaning that if I'd called her, my penis would be presented on the screen in all its glory. I told her this was a very stupid idea. What if I'd called and her phone was laying around somewhere? She said she never had her phone laying around, so no one would see it. I didn't think much of it. A few weeks later, we were having dinner with her parents, and she was talking about getting a new phone. Her father, with a straight face and in between 2 bites of his food, remarked, "Gee, if you get this new phone, does that mean you'll install a different picture for when he calls you?" Story 12. When I was about 10 years old, my parents were out, so I looked up some dirty films on the family computer. I kept hearing noises and thought someone was in the house, so I ran to my room and called my dad, leaving the computer on. My dad rushed home and went around the house looking for an intruder, but no one was there. It was just my next-door neighbors. While looking around, he obviously saw what I was looking at on the computer, and he asked me about it. I told him the intruder must have broken in and searched it up. Clearly, he didn't believe me, but he didn't say anything else about it after that. Story 13. When I was like 13, my mother walked in on me using her vibrator. The look on her face went from incomprehension to shock to utter disgust over the span of a second or two. She stayed calm and explained how it wasn't appropriate or sanitary for me to do that, but I just remember how unsmiling and tense she was, which was totally unlike I'd ever seen her. This was decades ago, but I still cringe so much recalling it. Story 14. I thought God would kill me for masturbating when I was little, so I barely ever did it. However, the entire house would know when I was doing it because I'd yell, "I'm sorry, God," when I did. My family wasn't even religious, so I don't even know where I got that idea from. Story 15. As a stupid 16-year-old, me and my best friend stole alcohol from her family and did shots. The problem was that she had a regular shot glass, but I had a double one. I had never drank before and did 16 shots. I got so drunk that I was throwing up everywhere. She took my clothes off, let me wear one of her outfits, and then washed my hair in her sink and got me into bed. To this day, I am so grateful for her. It's always a bad idea to overdo alcohol consumption, but the best thing you can do if you're going to is have a good friend around that you know will take care of you. I know OP didn't purposefully overdo it, but especially when you're unfamiliar with any substance, it's good to have someone you trust around. Story 16. A cheap bachelor party dildo melted in my bedside drawer after the AC in my room broke for a week. I didn't know that until I got my hand stuck in it in front of a guy who was asking me out. I opened the drawer and reached in looking for my chapstick while we were talking, and to my absolute horror, I couldn't pull my hand back out. It was completely stuck to something. It turns out that a fake silicone vibrator I got as a gag gift melted around the 3 other real silicone ones and then started to cure again. It was like half-dry superglue, but shaped like a 4-headed dick. It looked weaponized, and it was stuck to my hand. The dude tried to help me, but he just ended up getting it stuck on his hand too. We had to take turns spraying each other with scalding hot water to get it off. I've never been so mortified in my life. Needless to say, we never saw each other again after that. Story 17. My high school boyfriend and I were doing it in his attic bedroom, both of us completely naked. I was bouncing and moaning and making a lot of noise with the headboard because we were home alone. Well, his mom came home early and we had no idea until she was at the top of the stairs calling his name and walked in on me, totally naked and riding her son. She took a breath, calmly told us to get dressed and to come downstairs. When we did, she told us she was disappointed and asked him to walk me home. He very quietly told her we had planned to go to a church youth group afterwards. She let us leave after she picked her jaw up off the floor. That was the first time I'd met his mom. Story 18. I was 13 and had found my mom's vibrating bullet while she was at work. It was a little thing coated in rubber with a wire coming out the bottom leading to a little remote to control the intensity. I had recently learned guys have G-spots and I was curious, so I proceeded to fully insert it to test it out. I didn't feel a thing from it even at the highest setting, so figured it was time to pull it out, except it wouldn't budge. I was getting worried and tugging with more and more force when the wire snapped off, leaving just the bullet inside. I had a mini panic attack before deciding to try pooping it out, which worked. I then washed it several times because the smell of poop on it just refused to go away. I finally gave up and packed it back away where I found it with the wire snapped and still smelling of poop. My mom never brought it up, and I banned butt play from my life forever after that. I can't understand why OP would decide to put it back after that. I'd be putting that thing into the trash and never mentioning it again if that happened to me. It's not like the mom is going to ask their 13-year-old son where it went. Story 19. The first time I looked at spicy videos on the internet, I got a virus on my laptop. It turned my camera on and locked my laptop while saying, "This is the FBI, pay a fine." I went as white as a ghost and went and told my mom and dad. Stupid me didn't realize it was fake until Dad showed me. The fright of it got to me. Still to this day, my dad laughs about it and brings it up randomly. Story 20. When I was 15, my girlfriend was sleeping over. We weren't supposed to be alone, but everyone else had gone to bed without checking on us, so we decided to have some fun in my room. My room was at the top of the house and had a staircase leading up to the door. I had hung up one of those dangling bead things at the bottom of the steps a long time ago because my door didn't have a lock on it and my family didn't respect boundaries. So if I heard the beads moving, I would know that I had about half a second before someone came barging into my room, which was better than nothing. So it's probably 11 p.m., and my girlfriend and I are 2 teenagers awkwardly doing it. I heard the beads and panicked. I think it's my stepdad coming upstairs to check on us because walking into my room at almost midnight to make sure I was in bed was normal for him. So I move as fast as I have ever moved in my life. I threw the blankets over my girlfriend to cover her up. I had left my pants around my ankles for just this situation, so I reached down and yanked them up as fast as possible. The issue with this was that I had only managed to grab hold of my pants and not my underwear. This resulted in the underwear rolling up my very hairy legs, taking lots of said hair with it and giving me the most painful self-inflicted wedgie of all time. Having no time to acknowledge the pain I was suddenly in, I rushed to the door to open it while trying to come up with some excuse as to why I was in a room alone with my girlfriend. I opened the door, and to my surprise, there was no one there. I looked down a little bit, and staring up at me with his big dumb face was my family's dog. We laughed about it after I was done unwedging myself, but the time was definitely over. Story 21. For over a decade, I worked in a high-rise office building. At noon, I would change into a t-shirt, shorts, and runners to go for a jog. One day, I changed and took the elevator from the 8th floor to the ground, and when I arrived, I checked my shorts pocket to make sure I had my passkey. However, I was surprised to find that I had no pockets. Well, I quickly realized that I had neglected to put on my shorts and was standing in the lobby that was overflowing with the lunch crowd, in just my underwear. Instead of a jog, I took the stairs and sprinted up 8 floors. Luckily, I was able to get back into our office without anyone noticing. Story 22. For context, I am a female. One time, my best friend in high school brought this weird lotion to school. It was a hand lotion that had glitter, smelt really nice, and when you'd squeeze it out, it was bubbly. When you rubbed your hands together, the lotion would fizz in your hand, kinda like liquid pop rocks or intense carbonation. It was so fascinating, and I always asked my friend to use it on my hands. My friend took notice, and they bought some for me as a gift. It stayed in my bedside table for a while until one fateful night while browsing the internet, I remembered its existence. I thought it would feel really nice to put it down there. I put a tiny bit on my finger and tested it, but barely felt it except for a slight strange feeling, so I grabbed a whole handful and smacked it on there. The pain I felt was so immense and sudden. It was like a burning hot fire between my legs. I got up immediately, waddling through the hallway like I crapped myself, and hopped in a bath at like midnight. Even after washing it, it had a lingering feeling like when you literally burn yourself with fire. I think the hand lotion was also a disinfectant. Afterwards, I was super dry down there, but it was probably extremely clean, and it smelt nice. I've read enough stories on the internet about people putting stuff like icy hot and other substances that aren't meant for sensitive areas down there, and you definitely wouldn't catch me trying to use anything other than stuff designed for that particular purpose. Story 23. I once tried to smack a girl's butt when she was riding me, and I whacked myself square in the balls. It made an audible smack, and we had to stop for a bit while I was doubled over in pain. We had a good laugh about it, but I really thought my aim was better than that. Story 24. When I lived in a shared house, I decided one evening to shave my pubes. I went to flush the hair down the toilet, but someone was in there. Instead, I considered throwing them out of my second-story window. I know it's gross. Don't judge me. Then I saw that 2 of my housemates and 2 of their friends were in the spa pool outside the window, so I decided not to. What happened next is a blur, but I think I just left them on the windowsill and forgot about them. 10 minutes later, I heard a shriek followed by someone yelling at me. At first, I didn't know what was going on, but then I realized the wind must have blown my pubes out of the window and into the spa pool. I absolutely played dumb and refused to admit it was me. I came to the window to see what the fuss was about and acted shocked and outraged that they could accuse me of something so disgusting and weird. Inside, I was cringing like I've never cringed before. I'm actually best friends with one of the guys that was in the spa, and only recently, years later, did I confess that it was me. But it was sort of an accident.